The first week of November gave us some brand new restrictions when it comes to Thailand's alcohol ban. Is this going to be a huge blow to Thailand's nightlife and tourism industry alike? And if you're a tourist or an expat alike coming to Thailand and you don't understand these restrictions, it can lead to some hefty fine. Limited information we do have, we're going to get to the bottom of it. That way you know what to do and what not to do on your next trip to Thailand. How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you are doing well. We're gonna have to do a little investigative journalism. Lucky for you, lucky for me, that's exactly what we do here. Elite level journalism only. Just a few days ago, some brand new restrictions got stamped onto Thailand's book in regards to the restricted alcohol times in Thailand. We will get a bit into how we got to this point, what the rules were before, what they are looking like they're gonna be now. And if you spent any time in Thailand, you'll probably understand. But if you haven't, when it comes to things like this, when it comes to new regulations, sometimes things can be about as clear as mud. So we're going to try to wade through that today and make sure we can understand everything that's out there so far. So let's get into it. So first things first, before we can get into the changes, we got to rewind a little bit and take it back to how things were previous to this so we can have a better understanding of what these changes actually mean as opposed to how things were before. Under the earlier law, there were daily banned hours for alcohol sales in Thailand in many retail outlets and stores. For example, it has been completely standard that places like supermarkets, convenience stores cannot sell alcohol in the afternoon from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. as well as at night after midnight. And on top of that, frequently certain days out of the year, whether it be election days, Buddhist holidays, royal holidays, things like that, there are nationwide bans for the entire day. Some of these things are staying the same. Some of them are going to be enforced differently. Some of them might be going away. We're still not really sure yet, but we'll get into that a little bit more at the end of the video. But the biggest thing that makes this so confusing, if you've ever spent any time in Thailand, you'll know. You've probably gone into a restaurant in that time period from 2 to 5 p.m. You've probably ordered a beer and never heard anything about it. That's the big thing about this, and we will get into why I'm not really confident that this is going to work the way as intended, because it's not a black and white thing. It's not a, hey, you cannot buy alcohol from 2 to 5 p.m. It's, oh, well, you can't buy it here, you can't buy it here, but here's okay, here's not technically okay, but it's not really enforced, so it's no big deal. And before, you didn't really have to worry about it as the person who was buying alcohol, but that seems to be changing now. Now, although there are exemptions for licensed entertainment venues, hotels, certified establishments in tourist areas, and airports offering international flights, and essentially how it used to work is if you were the person buying the alcohol, you weren't really held liable for it. If you went into a convenience store somewhere during those restricted hours and you bought a beer, that wasn't really that big a deal. The fines tended to go to the person that sold it to you. But now, lo and behold, it looks like that's changing. The new regulations will have an adverse effect on restaurants because it is the consumer that is now restricted by the stipulated sale hours. If an establishment sells a bottle of beer to a customer at 1:59 p.m., for example, but they sit down and drink on the premises until 2:05 p.m., that will constitute a violation of the law under Section 32, and that person could be fined. Quote unquote, this will impede the growth of the restaurant industry, Mr. Chanan, who also runs a restaurant in Bangkok, said. In situations like this is what makes me question this whole thing. Now, I understand, trying to give people some responsibility. I think there is an argument for that, whether I agree with it or not. If you're in a country, ignorance isn't necessarily an excuse. The fact that you didn't know the law doesn't mean that the law doesn't apply to you. But like I mentioned earlier, the only thing that gets a little crazy about this, it would be one thing if it was black and white. If you were coming to Thailand and they, told you beforehand, hey, from 2 to 5 p.m., you cannot buy or drink alcohol. Okay, cool. I think people would be willing to deal with that. But the thing about it is that's not really how it goes. There's also concern the stricter laws present an opportunity for officials to enforce fines on customers, restaurants, or both for personal gain. So this is another aspect that I thought about. To say that that's not a possibility or something that's just not going to happen, I think is a very naive way to look at it. And not to mention the aspect that if you buy it before the restricted time, even if you're still sitting there drinking the beer that you paid for when you were technically allowed to have it, but you can still get in trouble for that. So that does not really make much sense to me. Even when it comes to these restrictions, it is not across the board. There are exemptions as well. Licensed entertainment venues, airports, hotels, certified establishments, whatever that means, in designated tourist zones are exempt from these restrictions. However, the same exemptions do not apply to ordinary restaurants where patrons may be penalized simply for sitting and drinking outside of legal time. The president of the Thai Restaurant Association, in a statement to Bangkok Post, warned that restaurants are now forced to police their customers' behavior. He noted that this change could stunt the growth of the food and beverage sector. In the response to the backlash, the Prime Minister has directed the Ministry of Interior to work with the Ministry of Public Health on potential revisions. The government is considering lifting zoning restrictions and extending nationwide alcohol service to 4 a.m. with the goal of finalizing the amendments by January 26. An earlier ministerial regulation issued in 2023 already allowed entertainment venues in Bangkok, Phuket, Chonburi, Chiang Mai, and Koh Samui to operate until 4 a.m., but registration and compliance issues have had limited implementation. And under the newly revised Alcohol Control Act, consumers can now be fined up to 10,000 baht if caught drinking during prohibited periods, including 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. and after midnight at non-licensed venues. Previously, the law primarily targeted vendors only. So in my opinion, this is the part where it just gets a little too muddy for you to expect people to fully understand what they're allowed to be doing and what they're not. So if I'm just a guy out who's, going out with my friends, going and having some drinks, how am I supposed to know which places are allowed to serve alcohol during that time and which places aren't? As we said, some places are allowed to stay open till 4 a.m. and keep serving, but other ones don't. So I don't understand how you can expect to hold the customer accountable unless there's some blatant way that you can explain to them, hey, these places are allowed, these places aren't. Right now, it's just super muddy. There's no real clear distinction between those places where you're allowed to and you're not allowed to. I think there's some real ways where people can use this in a nefarious way to kind of set people up, and kind of just denying the fact that that's possible to happen, I think is very naive. And I do agree, I think this has the possibility to kind of scare people off, even though once you read into it a little bit like we have, the laws themselves aren't really changing too much. It's just the way they're being enforced. If you look into this, it's not really a huge deal, but if you're just reading headlines or you just see a Facebook post somewhere as a tourist who's planning on coming to Thailand and you start seeing, hey, there's alcohol bans and now you can be fined $300 if you get caught drinking at the wrong time, I completely agree that it's very possible that people are going to be turned off by that. Unless they double back and just make it a blanket rule. Hey, no alcohol from 2 to 5 p.m., no alcohol after midnight. It's reasonable to have tourists and expats be able to understand that. But when it's like, oh yeah, 2 to 5 p.m., you're not allowed to unless it's in this type of place or this specific district or, this type of place that applied for a license. And while it might, if you're from the West, $300 might not seem like a lot for a police fine compared to the, America, that's nothing. But as far as Thailand goes, 10,000 baht is a pretty serious fine. Of course, I will keep you guys updated on this story. I have a feeling that some things are gonna be reeled back in a little bit. It does happen all the time. We saw the same thing with the bud laws here, but I would love to hear from you guys. What do you think? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is how it's going to be? If so, do you think they're going to, really hammer down on enforcing it and be out there hemming people up that are buying beers when they aren't allowed to? Let me know down in the comments below. If you did make it this far in the video, thank you so much for hanging out. If you'd like to help us out in the algorithm a little bit, you know what to do. All those buttons are down below. But that is all for me now. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.